$20. That is the price ceiling for every game on this list, 5 indie games, all at $20 or less, each with more Steam reviews than the AAA blockbuster it is lined up against. We are going to rank them smallest to largest by indie review count, explain the specific mechanic that drove each one, hear what players actually wrote in the top 2 games' review records, and end with an honest account of who should not treat this data as a buying guide.
Before we go through the list, convince me the metric is real. Is Steam review count just a lagging proxy for marketing spend? The better-funded studio reaches more players review?
Marketing reaches players, but a review only exists when a player chooses to write one after they have played. You can fund your way to a large launch audience. You cannot fund your way to a review score. A game with 800,000 reviews at 94% positive has survived a population too large and too varied to be inflated. That is why review mass at high positivity is more signal dense than Metacritic at launch or first week sales. Here is the full field, all data refreshed from the Steam App Reviews API across August 10, 2026 and August 11, 2026.
Every number on a single axis, all 10 games, each on its own bar, sorted by review count.
Entry 5, the lowest review count on the indie side, and the most extreme price gap on the board. Undertale, Toby Fox built it alone over 2.5 years and released it in 2015 at a list price of $9.99. As of July 25, 2026, it holds approximately 331,716 Steam reviews at overwhelmingly positive, about 97% positive. Its anchor is EA Sports FC 26 Electronic Arts, $69.99, released September 2025, with 100,419 reviews. The ratio is 3.3 to 1. The price delta at $9.99 versus $69.99 creates a specific population effect. A game priced below an impulse threshold reaches players who would never have bought a full-price title, widening the reviewer population far beyond what studio-scale releases can access at launch price.
Entry 4 is the solo developer versus the massive budget military shooter. Lethal Company Zeekers, one developer, $9.99, released in early access October 2023, holds approximately 509,031 Steam reviews at overwhelmingly positive. Its anchor is Battlefield 6, EA and DICE, one of the largest production pipelines in gaming, $69.99, launched in 2025 with 359,770 reviews. The margin is about 149,000. The mechanism driving Lethal Company's count is not mainly solo developer mythology, it is the 4-player mandatory design. The game requires at least one other person. That requirement turns every session into a social event. Players invite friends who have not played, those friends play the required number of sessions, and review. The game is its own distribution channel.
Entry 3, Phasmophobia, Kinetic Games, $19.99, released in early access September 2020 and never out of it, holds 833,073 Steam reviews at very positive, approximately 94%. Its anchor is Arc Raiders, Embark Studios, $39.99, released 2025, with 411,902 reviews. The gap is just over 2 to 1. Phasmophobia shares the co-op recruitment loop with Lethal Company, but it adds a second engine, a content update cadence that keeps returning players in the review pool across nearly 6 years of early access. When a major patch ships, lapsed players return, experience new mechanics, and a portion re-review or post-first reviews. Arc Raiders, launched fully in 2025, has not had 6 years to compound that effect.
Worth naming what Phasmophobia's review record actually says, because it is not all positive, and the pattern matters for who should buy it. The review record clusters around 3 themes. The dominant theme is social atmosphere. Players describe the ghost hunting experience as terrifying with the right group of friends, and sessions specifically with new players produce the most memorable moments. The second theme is update cadence. A portion of reviews note that major roadmap features have arrived more slowly than originally signaled. The third, and the most important for solo players, is that the game loses nearly all of its tension without co-op. Players who tried it alone report a fundamentally different and weaker experience. That complaint shows up clearly enough in the review record to be worth naming up front.
Entry 2 is the closest race and the most counterintuitive matchup on the board. Stardew Valley, concern ape, one person, Eric Barone, alone for 3 years, $14.99, released February 2016. It holds 1,030,795 reviews at overwhelmingly positive. Dead by Daylight Behavior Interactive, 1999, launched June 2016, holds 926,426 reviews. Both games launched the same year. The cozy farming sim leads the horror multiplayer franchise by 104,000 reviews, 10 years into both their lives. What drives Stardew's review count relative to Dead by Daylight is session design. Stardew's in-game calendar creates daily goals that produce sessions players report feeling short even when they run 3 or 4 hours. Players review when they feel they have received enough value to summarize. At $14.99, that moment arrives early and returns with every new farming season.
The review record on Stardew Valley clusters around 3 patterns consistently. First, time in game satisfaction. Reviews mentioning hours played trend toward the 200, 400, and 600-hour range. The writing moment arrives when players feel the price has been paid back many times over, which at $14.99 happens early. Second, what players describe as the one more day pull. The in-game calendar creates short horizon goals: ship this crop before fall, finish the community center before winter. And reviews describe sessions extending past midnight without a natural stopping point. Third, the complaint pattern. Players who expected deeper endgame content after year 2 or 3 report a thinning of structured goals. The negative review thread on post-game content is real and documented. It is not a fatal complaint, but it is present.
Entry 1 holds the largest absolute margin on the board, and it is also the oldest game in the field. Terraria Relogic, $9.99, released May 2011, holds 1,543,726 reviews at overwhelmingly positive, approximately 97%. Its anchor is Helldivers 2 Arrowhead Game Studios, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, $39.99, released February 2024, with 1,153,556 reviews. The gap is 390,170. The most significant fact about Terraria is not the current margin, it is the accumulation rate. The game is 15 years old and still adds reviews at a pace most 2024 releases cannot match per year, because the review population has no structural ceiling. Terraria has no scripted ending. Players finish a full progression arc and start again in a harder mode. They introduce friends to a build they are proud of. Free major updates reopen the game for players who had shelved it. Each of these events creates a new cohort of writers.
The review record on Terraria clusters into 3 consistent themes. The dominant theme is scope surprise. Players who bought the game expecting a 2-dimensional platformer describe discovering a progression arc they describe as hundreds of hours deep. A specific kind of surprise that produces writing because the expectation gap was large. The second theme is co-op story generation. Sessions with friends produce events that players describe in the way a person describes a film they watched: specific events, specific failures, specific emergent solutions. The third theme is value repetition. $9.99 generates reviews that describe embarrassment at the price relative to the hours received. The complaint pattern worth naming. Terraria's early game requires external knowledge. The crafting tree is wide and largely undocumented in-game. Players who reviewed negatively overwhelmingly described the same problem. The game does not teach you how to play it, and the first few hours are hostile without a guide or an experienced friend.
3 properties connect all 5 games on this list, and team size is not one of them. Phasmophobia now has a team, Stardew did not at launch. The first property, each session produces a story worth telling. A Terraria boss fight improvised with the wrong equipment, a Stardew Valley harvest that saved a failing farm, a lethal company run that went wrong in a way only that specific group of 4 people could have caused. These are narratives, not experiences. Review writing is a social behavior triggered by narrative ownership. The second property, the review moment, arrives naturally without an imposed ending. None of these 5 games announces that you have seen everything it has to offer. The third property, price, removes friction early. At $9.99 to $19.99, each of these games reaches players who would not buy a $60 title, widening the potential reviewer population structurally before the game ships.
Here is who should avoid using this list as a buying guide. If you want a premium single-player cinematic experience, full voice acting, orchestral score, directed narrative, a defined ending where the credits roll, review count will mislead you. Games designed for infinite replayability accumulate reviews structurally and durably. Games designed for one great scripted story do not, because their reviewer population is bounded at the number of players who finish the story. A low review count on a scripted single-player game is not evidence that it is bad, it is evidence of a different design target. If your specific need is a large-scale tactical military shooter, a current-season sports title, or a graphically intensive open-world experience, the AAA anchors on this list serve those needs, and a raw review count does not tell you they fail at their design goals. It tells you that fewer players chose to write. The trade-off in this metric is real. Replayable indie games dominate it structurally, which can make scripted, single-experience AAA games appear weaker than they are for their intended audience.
The scoreboard, data refreshed August 10, 2026 through August 11, 2026. Entry 5, Undertale, 331,716 reviews, versus EAFC 26 at 100,419, 3.3 to 1. Entry 4, Lethal Company, 509,031, versus Battlefield 6 at 359,770, margin of 149,000. Entry 3, Phasmophobia, 833,073, versus Arc Raiders at 411,902, 2 to 1. Entry 2, Stardew Valley, 1,030,795, versus Dead by Daylight at 926,426, margin of 104,000, same launch year. Entry 1, Terraria, 1,543,726, versus HELLDIVERS 2 at 1,153,556, margin of 390,000 after 15 years. All app IDs and live verification endpoints are linked in the description below. To keep finding games that pass this kind of scrutiny, FindIndieGame.com runs the full dataset continuously.